and I'll sit down. Well, season's greetings, everybody. Happy holidays. It's great. Thank you for coming out on this single-digit degree night. Beautiful out there, isn't it? My name is Madeline, and welcome to Fishtrap. This is our new space, and especially for folks who this is your first visit to this new space. It's the historic 1899 Bowlby building. It's been so many things. It started out as a drugstore and soda fountain for 40 years. It was a men's clothing store. It's been several different restaurants, and this new chapter of Fishtrap is a new chapter of the building is here at Fishtrap, where we're sharing stories and having conversations with each other. So, and I especially want to also welcome all of you folks who are here online, watching on Fishtrap's YouTube, on Fishtrap's Facebook page, and later on our YouTube channel and website. So, here's how Fishtrap Fireside works. The monthly reading series for Wow County's writers to share their work. I also want to thank our sponsor, which was just mentioned recently, Terminal Gravity. Thank you, Terminal Gravity. Really appreciate your Terminal Gravity beers over there. Help yourself. So here we go. Here's how it works. Each month we feature 3 different writers. They get about 10 minutes to do anything that they want. They can read poems, or stories, or tell jokes. They can do anything. And then we'll take a little break where you can refill your drink, have a snack, talk to people, and then we'll come back with an open mic. And the open mic, we have 5 spots. They're very short, up to 5-minute spots. If you would like to sign up for the open mic, there might be some. I think we only have 1 person signed up so far. There's a whiteboard back there. You can sign up at the break and share something you've been thinking. If you want to tell a little story, if you've been working on something, even if you read something recently you'd like to share in the holiday spirit, you're welcome to do that. So, before we get going, I want to tell you a couple different things that are coming up. On the 10th, Saturday the 10th, is Winterfest. We'll be here celebrating the season. The main street just looks awesome, and the whole town looks great. And you're welcome to come in and get a cup of cider and hang out with us to celebrate the season. We're going to have a little holiday break here, so the office is going to be closed from the 23rd through the 1st. And then things will start into the new year. I want to mention a couple things before we get going. If you know somebody who's passionate about the outdoors, about nature, about our environment, and like to write about it, we have a couple different programs called Outposts, where we take writers and bring them out into the wilderness for a week of concentrated writing and discovery with an instructor. Several of you have attended Outpost programs. One of you has cooked for Outposts for several years. We have 2 programs. One is in June. It's Outpost on the Zumwalt Prairie, where a small group of writers go out under the Zumwalt with an instructor. This year's instructor in June will be C. Marie Herman. And then in September, there's a raft trip down the Snake River, which a few of you have been on, and helped put that on. The instructor this year in September is Beth Piato. Registration open. There's a few spots left, so if you want to give somebody a gift of a really cool week in the wilderness writing, you have the opportunity to do that at fishtrap.org. Or if you want to sign up for it at the break, I can help you do that too. Also, Summer Fishtrap scholarship applications are going to open December 15 to January 15. That's a great opportunity for folks who would really bloom with the Summer Fishtrap experience, but might not, for one reason or another, might not be able to go with a little assistance. So we will open adult scholarship applications on December 15th. And then the youth scholarship applications this spring. If you want to know about that, ask me, Scott. And then Summer Fishtrap registration opens February 1st. We've got a lot of stuff going on, including, and finally, before we get going, Winter Fishtrap takes place this January. Winter Fishtrap is part of the Clear Thinking of Fishtrap's mission. Each year we have a theme. This year's theme is Generations in Storytelling. We'll have several events about how stories from Loudoun County, how to tell your stories, the stories, sharing stories through generations, young and old, different perspectives, different cultures, different orientations, just being able to tell different kinds of stories. So that's what's happening. Okay, let's get on with the show. Yeah, more about all this stuff later. Yeah. Oh, what's in your
Nice sweater.
I'm pretty excited. I'm pretty excited about tonight. Huh?
I like your sweater. We all like it. I like the tie.
This is the best Christmas of my whole life. All right, let's get to the show. I'm excited about the variety that we've got here. Our first reader is Al Bell. Yeah. If you don't know Al, you will in a few moments. Al Bell is an 81-year-old retired peace officer. He has worked inside 6 prisons, 2 probation and parole offices, as a police officer, and as an elder abuse investigator, among many other things. He has begun writing a series of books called The Red Tail Lake Saga. It's about a village located at 2 high mountain lakes in northeastern Oregon. Tourism is their primary source of income, so for fun, they call their law enforcement officer a constable, and give him and his deputy for a police raid golf cart. That's a patrol vehicle. Suddenly, there's an uptick in violent crime, and the surprised constables find themselves embroiled in shootouts, knife fights, and all kinds of skullduggery. Al writes under the pen name Shade Owen. He has 2 of the books in the can and a 3rd and 4th sketched out. It's a heavy lift, and he's 81, so he says it may be a little while before you find out what happens at Red Tail Lakes. Please welcome Al Bell.
Pardon me. Could somebody help me up here? Geez, I looked at the crowd tonight and I thought Janie Tippett was reading. I told my wife before I left the house, I said, do not let me forget this book. So, Mike Midlow slammed the door on me pretty good last week, and he sent out a text saying, we're trying to make this a family operation. And so soft pedal the sex and the violence. I said, well, what am I going to read about? So I had to go back and write the whole book over again. Shade Owen is a retired peace officer. He has lived in the mountains of northeast Oregon for the last 30 years. Somewhere in the mountains of eastern Oregon is a village located beside 2 lakes. 2 lakes. Known as the Red Tail Lakes, the once quiet and peaceful village is beginning to experience murders, shootouts, and other crimes, which are skillfully resolved by Pete Cavanaugh and his deputy Marcella Gregg, along with the county sheriff George Silky Stevens. Kicking up dirt on Gilmore Road is the first in a series of books called The Red Tail Lake Saga by Shade Owen. That's me. Pete Cavanaugh was sitting at his desk looking over a report and sipping coffee from his favorite mug when the cell rang. It was the county dispatcher, Madeline Wood. She was urgent. Pete, Breezy Calhoun just called on the 911 line. He says there's an armed robbery in progress at Trula's right now. The news stunned Pete. He exclaimed, "An armed robbery? Is he sure?" Marilyn returned. He says there's a man with a gun. As the full impact of Marilyn's words hit him, Cavanaugh instructed her, "Call Silky and Marcella and tell them what's happening. I'm on my way." He jerked his desk drawer open and retrieved his .40 caliber semi-automatic pistol. With the words armed robbery still ringing in his ears, he began running from the constable's office, out the back door of the post office building, around the fire station, across the road, carefully keeping a building between him and Trula's front door. Pushing the slide on the pistol back, he released it, thus chambering around. Arriving at the front door, he crouched next to Breezy, who was kneeling by the entrance. Breezy pointed with his thumb toward the inside and whispered, "There's a guy in there with a gun. He's got Donna at the cash register." Breezy was part of the early morning coffee crowd that gathered every day. Cavanaugh whispered lowly, "Have you seen anybody else go in there? Any other customers?" Breezy shook his head and said, "I'm not sure, but I think I was the first today." Pete thought for a moment, then whispered, "Breezy, if you want to leave, you can, but if you want to help out, someone has to stay here at this door and keep everyone quiet and outside." Breezy's eyes got big and he nodded. "I'll stay," he whispered, mouth set firmly. Pete told him, "Good man, stay out of sight, okay?" By nature, Breezy's not confrontational, but he is a loyal citizen. Nodding, he ducked behind the wall of the front door. There is a low row of windows running the length of Trula's restaurant area. Cavanaugh had to pass these windows to get to the back door. If he did not keep low, he could be seen from the register area. Running quietly to the back of the building, he found the door unlocked. Good old Sam, he always forgets to lock this door. Quietly pushing the entry open, he slipped inside. The tavern was empty. Tiptoeing across the bar room. I used to play gigs in here, and I wasn't near this nervous. He tiptoeing across the bar room, he pushed against the entrance leading to the store area. It opened a crack. Peeking in, Pete saw a man, probably in his early 30s, shaggy brown hair and a denim jacket, pointing a pistol at Donna. He heard the man say in a calm but menacing voice, "Lady, you better open that register or I'm going to have to start whipping ass." He didn't appear nervous, and he held the pistol rock steady. Pete thought, "Guy looks like he's done this before." It raised the threat level. The robber said again with more volume and threat in his voice, "Open the damn register, I ain't going to tell you again." The man had his back to Pete while he was threatening Donna. Cavanaugh slipped through the door. He caught Donna's eye and put his finger to his lips in a shush sign. Pete aimed his pistol between the man's shoulder blades. As he moved toward the register area, Donna began pleading louder. "Look, mister, we don't want any trouble here. We don't keep any cash in the register overnight, and Trula ain't put any in there this morning. She only puts $50 in there anyway. It's just enough to make change for the customers." The man let out a low, threatening growl and stepped toward her with his gun hand raised as if he were going to pistol whip her. Kavanaugh heard him say, "Cut the crap and open the register or I'll crack your skull." Pete had a problem. Donna was standing directly in front of the man. A .40 caliber bullet is a powerful round, and it could pass through the perpetrator and strike Donna with enough force to seriously injure or even kill her. He jerked his head to the left and motioned with his hand, signaling Donna to move toward the register and give him a clear shot. Now, Donna's tough, but she can be slow on the uptake. She wasn't getting it. She was kind of looking at Pete. As Pete moved forward, the robber saw Donna looking in Kavanaugh's direction. He turned quickly and seeing the constable began to raise his pistol. Pete was squeezing the trigger of his automatic when a strange thing happened. As the robber raised his pistol, an object came flying at high speed from Pete's right. It hit the gunman in the head, dropping him flat on the floor. Pete jumped to the man, recovering his pistol. There was no need to hurry, he was out cold. Pete looked down at the man and saw a can of tomato soup slowly revolving on the floor. Turning his head in the direction of the object had come from, Pete saw Clive standing in the door of the storeroom, feet apart, hands on his hips. As the soup can lazily stopped spinning, Pete said, "What the hell?" Clive casually strolled over to the unconscious man. He looked down at him, shrugged his shoulders, in a calm, matter-of-fact voice said, "I used to pitch for the UCLA's varsity team. Even got scouted by the pros. 90-mile-an-hour fastball." Clive smiled as if remembering pleasant memories. Then he looked at Pete and said with a touch of pride, "They was taking me up to the minors when I got pinched for autocrat. That sort of ended my baseball career." Shifting his gaze to the man on the floor, Kleiner rubbed the stubble on his chin, cocked his head to the side, and said, "I can still throw, though." Pete watched as Clive sauntered back to the storeroom where the hobo began stocking shelves, as if nothing had happened. It was at least 50 feet from the downed robber to the storeroom where Clive had wound up for his pitch. Looking toward the storeroom, he said, "Yes, you can, Clive. You can still throw." Taking his cuffs out of his case, Pete slid them on the man's wrists. Looking up from his prisoner, Pete asked Donna if she would call Madeline at dispatch and have her send an ambulance. He wasn't at all sure Clive's throw wouldn't prove to be fatal without medical attention. Looking at the hobo, now calmly stocking shelves in Trula's storeroom, Pete thought to himself, "You know, that's how it goes here in the county. You just gotta be nimble, because you never know what's gonna happen next." It's the only $100 book in the county. Book law.
Al, did I miss? Where can folks pick up your book?
Well, I gotta send it back for some revisions.
Eventually,
Yeah,
you'll be able to go down to the book lot.
It's taken about 4 years to get to here, so. Who knows? The book law.
Shannon reminded me, I forgot about one other thing that you're welcome to come do is Business After Hours hosted by the Chamber of Commerce. Again, it's next week.
It's next Thursday, 4 to 6, right here.
Yeah, you're welcome to stop by, have a snack, and hang out. We all have New Year's resolutions every year, you know, and for some it's like, I'm gonna work on my writing, I'm gonna work on some stuff. We have been, for several years now, have been working on having monthly writing workshops at Fishtrap, both in person, live in person workshops, and online, so people can take the workshops from anywhere. And we've got a couple coming up I want to tell you about that I think are kind of cool that you can sign up for now at fishtrap.org or contacting me. In January, Saturdays in January, the four Saturdays in January, there's an online workshop with one of our Fishtrap fellows from a few years ago who I think is so cool, Beatrice Alder. She is doing Beyond Chocolate and Roses, writing about love of all sorts. So you can go and learn a little bit about that, what that workshop might be like and connecting with other people. Then in another one in February, there's an online workshop, Tuesdays in February, from another former Fishtrap fellow who's amazing. Her name is Emily Wicknall. Listen to this title, Where I'm Coming From, writing about money and class identity. So that should have some pretty interesting conversations. So check those things out, and they're fairly they're inexpensive, they're easy to sign up for, and easy to access for anybody anywhere. And if any of you would like to have just like I would like to share or get together with some people and start talking about this kind of thing or this kind of thing, or you're welcome to lead an in-person workshop here at Fishtrap. It's great to have people. It can be as casual or as formal, as academic, or as non-academic as you want. So if you have an idea of something you'd like to share, it might be a 2-hour workshop talking about poetry or talking about reading critically or whatever it might be. I encourage you to get in touch with me and say, hey, I'd like to get some people together and do that. Okay.
Do you pay?
You bet. Your bottom dollar. Yeah. Yeah.
It's a little joke.
American. Our next reader is, I'm also excited for this. Madeline is a 6th-generation Oregonian from a small grassy town in the Willamette Valley. She's been a creative dilettante. Is that how we say it? Dilettante? Yeah. She's been a creative dilettante as long as she can remember. And I should look that up before I come up here and say it. I did write it in 280, so I could say it. And recently realized she has profound ADD. Madeline is a mom of 3 wild boys and a partner to her extremely patient, significant other. When she moved to Willamette, she noticed her skill set was designed more for 19th century dinner parties than anything else, and she's been working to remedy that. She writes stuff, plays music, freaks out, and wanders around in the outside. Welcome, Madeline.
Thank you very much to Fishtrap for having me. This is a joy. Am I an appropriate volume? Yes. I'm a wildly loud person, so I asked Mike to tell me, stage dad it, and tell me to take it down. I've been working on a collection of what I call micro essays about jobs I've had over the years. It's called Work, and there's very little context, so buckle up. Here we go. In 2006, the height of teenage sophistication involved a mall job at Victoria's Secret. Dressed head to toe in black, toting a measuring tape like an overzealous seamstress, the lingerie guard would meet prospective clients at the door with a forced invitation to come in, look around, can I help you find something? It was in this space that my growing discomfort around touching strangers became quite apparent. We were expected to measure ladies for bra size, which I'm sure you can imagine was a wildly intimate thing for a SIO high school junior to master, but a task which could really only be completed by someone possessing the sheer bravado of youth. It was a regular occurrence at Salem Center Mall that a woman being measured was simply of too great a girth to fit in any of Victoria's wares. In these moments, I'd feel my face go red as I leaned into the stranger in a type of ham-fisted embrace, straining my measuring tape to reach all the way around and realizing I'd have to disclose Victoria's real secret, an utter disregard for inclusive sizing. Fumbling, I'd refer customers to a nearby Lane Bryant. Patrons were shockingly pleasant in these scenarios, but my level of discomfort grew to a fever pitch, and I began obsessing over the distraction that was store maintenance, particularly folding. If you've ever visited a Victoria's Secret, you might recognize the sort of peculiar trays they put out on shelves and fill with underwear, not unlike a charcuterie board at a dinner party. They didn't call these trays panty platters, and that was clearly a missed marketing opportunity. Customers would rifle through them, callously destroying my careful work and creating a type of Sisyphean struggle to refold on a near constant loop. Straightening the panty platters became a type of fixation for me, to the degree it was mentioned in my employee review. Madeline needs to improve sales strategies, focus on greeting customers. She's consumed with folding and organizing the store to the point she ignores people. In other words, it was getting weird. When my efforts to corral wayward undies went unappreciated and the sales pitch was more forcibly imposed, I left Victoria with little sadness and moved to greener retail pastures, the men's department at Nordstrom. This next piece is called Range Rover. Furtively, we greased the metal racks with wax paper, a tactic to prevent squeaking from hangers laden with clothes that cost close to my mortgage. She peers at me over her rhinestone-encrusted glasses. You know, when we got divorced, I didn't get a penny. He told his lawyer if anyone can scrape her way back from nothing, it's Candace. She came from poverty and knows how to work. So I work and I struggle, and he keeps the big house and the cars and everything, and it's so damn hard to not be bitter. I nod, hoping to channel empathy and wisdom beyond my 22 years. Heavily pregnant and newly employed at a storied luxury boutique in the Portland suburbs, I pace the sales floor for my 8-hour shifts, sometimes so queasy from morning sickness I have to hide face down in the dressing room. $14 an hour and a modest discount on clothes I couldn't hope to afford anyway, and unofficial therapy sessions with Candace. We button up the store, grab our coats, and head to the parking garage. Me to my 97 dusty Volvo wagon, her to her sparkling white Range Rover. This next piece is called the LeBand Art Gallery. I'm not bitter about this. I wore charming dresses and smiled at artists, holding doors for patrons with deep pockets and students with dreams of being the next Basquiat. The artists gave me signed prints and copies of their exhibition catalogs, exclusive tours of their work before we admitted the masses. In my mind, I was perfectly at home, dazzling even on my better nights, floating through moonlit crowds on the veranda, balancing wine and the tiniest afterthought of a cracker with slivers of cheese. The gallery director was a diminutive woman with a dry sense of humor. She wore a Freudian slip costume to our Halloween party and had a bicycling husband, professor at the university and her constant companion. She embodied, in her tiny way, a life that seemed gloriously chic and evolved, and I would be lying if I said I didn't want to be just like her. At contract renewal time, I gushed about my joy for the gallery, an appreciation to be involved, excitement for next year. I think it's best to look for other employment, she murmured, sorry. She murmured my hopes, but she murmured the sentence. Yeah, that's my friend, so thank you. I think it's best to look for other employment, she murmured. You're just too much for the gallery. This next one is called the Matzah Guard. Shout out to any Jewish folks in the audience. Okay, look, here's the deal. You gotta be the one to stand in the door with a checklist, be intimidating, and confirm that none of these rabbis are gonna try to make off with more matzah than what they ordered. This happens every year, and I think this will really work because you're not in the community, so they won't feel like they can take advantage. I gulped and nodded, pulling at my sleeves to make sure my elbows were covered, along with my knees, collarbones, and imposter syndrome. The spreadsheet for the Passover matzah was shockingly long. All of the rabbis from the local shuls and even as far away as Naperville would be coming to the warehouse to pick up their orders for each congregation, following the commandment that on Pesach you eat unleavened bread to commemorate the haste with which the Hebrews fled Egypt. On the big day, the rabbis were just as hasty, flocking into a drab Quonset hut of a room, frantically grabbing box after box of matzah stacked 10 high in their arms. I stood sentinel, chiding, "Rabbi Horowitz, you only paid for 120 regular and 6 gluten-free. You're going to have to put those back." I did my best guilt-inducing eyebrow raise. Hang-dogged and a little bewildered, the rabbi shot me a look of disdain but replaced the purloined matzah. After a frenzied week, my numbers were spot on, an ironic component of my job as accountant and general henchman for the Orthodox rabbis of Illinois that was not lost on me, a high school algebra failure. "You did good with the matzah," Rabbi Klein offered. "I'm going to call your husband to ask if we can use you for another event." My last piece was in the recent zine in summer, and it's called The Forest. This is a shortened version. When I was 14, working at the Enchanted Forest theme park, there was no prize sweeter than a stolen Sprite soda from the ice cream stand. Mixed with the special ice used for making snow cones, it was a summertime delicacy. Sprite was the choice because, while carbonated, it most closely resembled water, and the meddling powers that be would not, in fact, notice. That was the world we occupied then, one of sloppy Chuck Taylors, unlaced and dragging in the dust of Western town, where one's greatest concern was how to get to work with a shitty beater car, and would the supervisor realize I stole this soda? Every day in the break room, an exhausted copy of Billy Madison played on repeat, wearily depicting the scene where Adam Sandler's character hallucinates penguins. We scattered around busted plastic tables in that fluorescent chamber and savored the sensation of sitting. It never got old. I watched, laughed, memorizing line for line while eating my half peanut butter and jelly sandwich that I packed to get through an 8-hour shift, because at 14 I was constantly worried about being too fat. When break was done, closely monitored for an unpaid 30 minutes, we marched back to work, donning Western wear or Old English garb to mingle with the public in pedal wares. If it was a sort of unlucky day, you'd be assigned a spot in the haunted house, famous for groping. When I want to get really nostalgic, I remember a much less politically correct time in the early 2000s when teenagers could grope each other freely in the darkened hallways of the haunted house and not feel remotely bad about it. The forest was a kind of respite for us all. And I think it prevented my adolescence from being an angsty one by giving me so many outlets for self-realization. I made my own money, I worked in every corner of that park and savored the camaraderie and feelings of mixed unity and defiance towards the powers that be. We were a tribe, not a team, and we rallied against the supervisors like only middle-class children can. It helped that one half of the powers that be composed insane medieval synth music to accompany the water light show in the Old English Village, and was generally found smiling. Her music wafted through a room that was always damp no matter the time of year, and smelled like a swimming pool filled with popcorn, which it basically was. The magic transcendence of the water light show, coupled with its compelling melodies, was perennially mesmerizing, and it was my favorite place to work. Even though we had to shove thousands of tiny pizzas through a ridiculously inefficient toaster oven to placate the parents and their overtired children, the place never lost its charm. It was one of the few restaurant spaces you could wrangle a stolen soda to, and supervisors rarely showed up because it was dank and dark and depressing in the middle of July. I loved it. I worked at Enchanted Forest every summer until I was 18 and went away to college in Southern California. In LA, every job felt graduated and bougie. Gallery assistant, Mediterranean cafe barista, hostess at an up-and-coming French bistro. Working alongside gold-toothed immigrants from Guatemala who taught me kitchen Spanish was a new education, but I was still so naive. It wasn't the hollowed halls of the mildewed haunted house. No one was really checking up. Did anyone care if I stole ice, merchandise, money? There would never again be the wholesome immersion of an entire amusement park of equally desperate teens, languishing under an oppressive August sun and longing only for the tiniest contraband cup of Sprite. I guess it was my youth or something.
And that makes me feel like we can all tell stories about some of our first jobs. That would be a good little gathering. Madeline did invoke the zine. For those who don't know, we do have a quarterly zine called the Circle of Seasons that Fishtrap has helped bring along. We don't run it. Catherine Morone is the editor of it, but it's a quarterly zine. It's just a paper publication that any of you can contribute to. Quarterly. It has drawings, poems, sometimes people put in recipes. There should be copies of them up here, maybe not because we've got the holidays, but you can find them for free at the book loft and in laundry and everyone else is here at the zine. So if you have any interest in doing that, I don't know what the new deadline is, but I'll find out. Okay, our final featured reader is coming up. And remember, if this has inspired you to read anything, to do a little something afterwards, our sign-up sheet for the open mic is over there. It looks like we've got 3 spots left, up to 5 minutes after our break. Okay. Gregg Kleiner grew up playing in the creeks outside of various rural backwaters of Oregon. For summer vacations, his parents took their 5 children on extended backpacking trips, which instilled him with a love of the outdoors, wilderness, and mountains, especially the wilds. At age 16, he spent a year as an exchange student in the mountains of northern Thailand, where he lived for a month at a Buddhist monastery under the tutelage of an aged monk. In the winter of 2003, some of you might remember, he served as Fishtrap's writer in residence, living at the head of the lake with Lori Salas and their 2 children, teaching in all 3 high schools and getting to know the wonderful residents of Wallowa County. He and Lori now call this county home. Kleiner is the author of the novel Where the River Turns to Sky, which was a finalist for the Patterson Fiction Prize and the Oregon Book Award. It was also optioned for a feature film by Fox Searchlight. His first book for kids and their grown-ups, Please Don't Paint Our Planet Pink, asks what might happen if we could see CO2 in the atmosphere as pink. He has worked as a wildlife biologist, journalist, visiting professor, communications professional, dairy goat farmer, and is currently the project coordinator for the Joseph Branch Trail Consortium. Put it together for Gregg Kleiner.
Thank you, Mike and Shannon, Jennifer, and Janice, and all the Fishtrap folks who bring this fabulous thing to the county. It's really quite amazing, and that's the reason I'm here is because I was a Fishtrap writer in residence years ago and met all these amazing people, and so we decided to come back for good. So thank you, Fishtrap. And thank you all for coming out tonight. It's really a great event, and it's just nice to share stories. And Al and Madeline, who both knocked it out of the park. Well done. Tough acts to follow here. I want to thank Lori, my wife, who's very supportive of all this. Stories really have a lot of power, so I'm going to read a short story because I believe that they're powerful. And I worry about kids and the climate, and that's why I wrote that kids book. It's like, well, how can you inspire kids but not scare the daylights out of them? And so that was my attempt at that. I wrote the story I'm going to read tonight, which is called Cottonwoods and Caddisflies, about a year ago, and it was during the COP that was happening in Scotland, the Great Climate Conference that was going down in Scotland. And it's funny because it just ended this year in Egypt a week or so ago, and kind of the same old stuff. But I thought that was timely, so I would read this, but it does mention the Scotland COP, but it was in Egypt this year. And this was published in the Chemist magazine this fall. The story also touches on Fishtrap's theme of generations, so I thought that would be a nice fit as well. The setting is somewhere very near here, which you'll probably get a sense of, and it's quite short. It's just a snippet of a story, and I hope you enjoy it. Cottonwoods and caddisflies. The boy is sitting outside on the porch swing of his white house, looking out at the cottonwoods in the distance that have turned a brilliant yellow gold. Almost the same color as the sun, he thinks. Like yellow cotton candy, puffy and piled up on the far side of the meadow along the creek. The sky is a perfect, polished blue, except for a few wispy clouds high over the mountains in the distance. His toes barely touch the worn porch boards. Overhead, he hears the swing squeaking a little on its chains, and in the distance, magpies are squawking. And from inside the house, he can hear words on the radio in the kitchen where his mother is cooking and clanking and talking to his uncle. All week, he has been listening to his mother and uncle speaking quietly about the conference in Scotland. He's seen some of it on television. World leaders dressed up, talking. Greta calling it a failure. He worries about what's coming and wishes he were younger, back before he knew of things like this that scare him now. Back when he was still a small boy, when he took naps on this very swing with his blanket and the railing his mother made out of willow limbs slipped into place. Back when he would play outside all day in the fields and woods nearby, building forts and climbing trees. Even a few years back when he spent hours down at the creek, those 2 endless summers with his new best friend Nora Whitecloud, tossing rocks and picking up the casings of caddisfly larvae and wondering how these creatures could glue all those tiny pebbles together to form a shell the size of Nora's pinky. Such a small, safe home that they dragged along with them under the water and over rocks. He hears his mother's voice coming out through the window behind him that's open a few inches. Mixed up with his uncle's words and the sounds of the radio, all of it jumbled together in hushed tones. We need to start. What it is failure before, too late. Catastrophe, blah, blah, blah. Poisoning. Remember lead pipes? A fucking cataclysm. Shh, he'll hear. Too young. Boy misses her. They know. We need to listen to them for once. Their land, wisdom, greater. Their fucking future. Shh. The boy watches 2 magpies glide past, thin as knives against the blue, and disappear toward the golden leaves in the distance. He remembers how Nora used to say magpies had special powers, that they could warn of danger. That's what the elders tell us, Nora had said. She'd often mentioned the elders, and the boy wondered who they were. One time when they were picking huckleberries, Nora had warned him, "Be sure to leave some behind on the bushes." "Why is that?" he'd asked. "It's what the elders say to do," she said. "You never take all of anything. You always have to leave some." "Who are they?" he had asked. "Who are who?" "The elders." "Do you mean your grandparents?" "Yes," she had said, "but more than just mine. All the ones who have lived a long time." When they played in the creek, Nora would sometimes wonder what it might be like if they were rocks or water instead of people. Or what if we were caddisflies or butterflies or magpies and we could fly way up high, she'd say, and wave a dripping hand in the air. The boy wonders where Nora is now. He remembers she was from a place called Lapway, but spent summers with her grandparents who lived in a faded trailer a few ranches over. She'd said Lapway meant the land of the butterflies, and he always thought of that when he saw one. But Nora hadn't returned the following summer or the next. He wishes she were sitting next to him now, swinging. He could ask her what the elders think about what's coming, what his mother and uncle are worried about. Maybe they could go down to the creek together again and look for caddisfly larvae. The boy hears cattle bawling from the Jay-Z ranch in the distance. This time of year is when the calves are separated from their mothers, and the sound makes him sad. The sun is lower now, and more clouds have appeared above the mountains. The screen door squeaks open, and the boy's mother comes out, wiping her hands on a towel. "Oh, there you are," she says. "What are you doing out here?" "Just thinking," the boy says. His mother sits down next to him on the swing and says, "About what?" He shrugs. "What's coming, you know, what you and Uncle Jerry have been talking about." He pauses and then adds, "And Nora." His mother puts an arm around his shoulders and pulls him close. "You miss her, don't you, that Nora?" He nods against her arm and can feel tears trying to come, but he swallows and asks, "Why doesn't she come back?" "Her grandparents moved away," his mother says. "Remember?" "Where?" "Up north in Idaho, to be closer to family." The boy pulls away and looks at his mother and asks, "To that way?" "Yes," she says, "that's it." "Can we go see her?" "You'd like that, wouldn't you?" she says. "You two were good pals." He nods and says, "She always talked about the elders. Maybe they know what we should do." "Do about what?" his mother asks. "You know, the conference, the Kleiner." His mother is quiet. "You don't have to worry about that," she says. Not yet." Two magpies swoop in and land in the lilac bush in the yard and start squawking so loud his mother tells them to hush up. "Nora said they can warn of danger ahead," the boy says. "Who can?" "The magpies. They have special powers. The elders told her that." He stops and then asks, "Can we really go see her sometime?" His mother doesn't say anything. The magpies fall quiet, then take flight and streak out over the meadow toward the cottonwoods. "Please?" "I can probably find out where they live," his mother says. "It's a small town. Why not? Let's take a trip." "Really?" the boy says, his eyes gone wide. "Sure," his mother says. That might be good." The boy watches his mother looking out toward the mountains. It's as if she's gone somewhere else altogether. The sun slips behind the peaks, and he can feel the air start to cool. His mother's hand is warm in his. She squeezes it and comes back. "I'm off tomorrow," she says. "We'll go tomorrow." Two magpies fly past, and the boy wonders if they are the same ones that were just here. The cows are still bawling in the distance, but he hops off the swing and bounds down the stairs. "Wait," his mother calls. "Dinner's almost ready. Where are you going?" The boy turns his head but keeps running. "Just down to the creek," he shouts. "Be right back. I need to get something for Nora." He runs fast toward the trees. A breeze has come up, and the leaves are flying like butterflies. That's the end.
Development manager for Fishtrap. After enjoying Fishtrap for 23 years, I now have the pleasure of working here. So I wanted to give a shout out to Terminal Gravity, who's the sponsor for tonight, and there's a cooler of beer over there from them. And I also wanted to let everybody know that Terminal Gravity does an open mic the last Friday of every month. So their next one is on December 30th. So I'm inviting everybody there on their behalf as part of the shout out. So, and then I also wanted to tell people that we have a raffle going, a holiday raffle, and I'm going to be over there during the break, and I hope you'll come see me. The raffle tickets are $2 a piece, or 3 for $5, and you win a 12 truffle box from Arrowhead, as well as some really great Fishtrap swag. So I hope that lots of you will come visit me over there. And on behalf of the Giuseppe Center, I am also going to I have a couple paper surveys. The Arts and Economic Prosperity Coalition has asked the Giuseppe Center to do these surveys. They take 3 minutes each. I have some paper ones, or you can do a QR code. And if you're willing to do that, I know Cheryl Cogman would be really grateful. So there's lots of reasons to come see me over there if you want to. But in the meantime, enjoy cookies and bask in this just amazingness that we've been treated to.